guys, in today's review will be on a Hornby model, and this Hornby model I've been trying to find for a few years brand new, and I finally found one at a decent price off eBay. I should tell you the price at the end. The LOCO is the Great Western 280 38Xx class, and this I believe is a preserved one. The LOCO number for this is 3803, and I believe it's at Dartmoor Railway. The product code is R2918. This came out 2010, so it's coming around for 15 years. The tooling is probably a little bit older than 15 years. It is in the Great Western green, non-lined. That makes it era free. It is DC ready. It's an 8-pin. It has a 5-pole screw round motor, and it can do second radius. Yeah, I know Dapple are releasing one at some point, but I thought I'd review the Hornby one to see if it's still a good model and should Hornby re-release it, basically. So let's get into the review and see what it's all about, shall we? So before I get onto what details you get with the model, I will just mention the packaging. This came out, like I said, 2009, 2010, going off the websites that I use. And this has the split polystyrene packaging that Hornby did with a plastic insert. And then you take it off like a sandwich. When you make a sandwich, take it off that way. Then your LOCO's in there. The LOCO is sort of like steady in the box. It has 2 metal bars screwed to it, and the instructions tell you how to remove them, and then you just tighten the screws back up. I've got a few models that have this packaging. I'm not too keen on it, but nothing's broken, and it is from like 2010, so nothing's broken, so it's done its job for all these years. So let's actually move on to what you get with the model. So you do get an instruction leaflet for the 28 and the 38XX, and from what I can understand, the only differences between the two models in real life was the 38 had different cab windows and it had steam pipes at the front from built. That is what I can gather from looking at a few bits of history and research, but this leaflet does both. So on the first page you have your general information, DC ready, running hints and tips, cleaning, motor, that sort of good stuff, all the usual stuff that Hornby do. It's got a thing about bodywork. All I will say is that this model was very delicate to touch for me. As you move over to the centre 2 pages, it tells you about lubrication, accessories, body removal, assembly, like because you have to put the plug in yourself, which I find nerve-wracking. Close coupling, you have 2 different types. It's not screwed in, you've got 2 different types to go to the LOCO. Also DC ready information. All the stuff for that is in the tender. Where to lubricate is the usual points behind the wheels and on the rods. And obviously the motor and stuff like that when you get round to servicing it. Then the back page tells you about the brake rods, which you get in a detail pack. But also you can also see from the diagram of the way it comes packaged with the metal rods attached to it. Likely just take them off, loosen them, and then tighten them back up. Then you get the usual safety notes that Hornby put in their leaflets. As for detail parts, you get 2 bags. The first outer bag, which I say, has the front coupler in, which is an M1 by the looks of it. Also has the brake rigging and drain cocks. And I think it has a steam pipe or vat pipe as well. And then on the inside, we have a hook and chains in there, and I think there's some other details as well. Can't quite see through it. The only issue I have with these is they're not resealable bags. That's my only issue. And then finally, to date the model, you have a DC jacket with your model. That tells you how old this model is. These things are no good no more, no one uses them. So now as we move on to the front of the locomotive, there's quite a lot to see at the front of the locomotive. As you can tell, we do have metal sprung buffers, which is a nice touch. We have an end pocket down below for your front couplers in the detail bag. We also have some guard irons to knock stuff off the tracks. Again, that bit is in plastic, but it doesn't bother me. Let's talk about the buffer beam and buffers. The buffers themselves are red with a few rivets on. We do have the number of the locomotive, which is 3803, with a shadow font, which is correct. The buffer shanks and the buffer themselves, they are separately applied and they are in red. The buffer shanks are, and the buffers themselves are shiny metal and sprung. There's a few holes on the buffer beam for detail parts that again are in the detail bag. It is a shame we didn't add the hooks pre-fitted, just my preference. As we move on up, we do have the 3 lamp irons in the correct places. They look to be separately applied, or they're very good moulding anyway. There is quite a lot of rivets on the front here. Hopefully my photos will bring them up. There's quite a lot of rivets. Smack bang in the centre on the bottom half, we do have a dome. Not quite sure what that's for, but we do have that. Either side of that, we do have some, in real life, there will be metal supports or strays. I've been watching a lot of F1, so strays to support the boiler at the front. They are separately applied. They come in, they go into little sockets on the running board at the front, because two of mine were loose when I got it. They are separately applied, like I said. We have a separately applied smoke box dart. We also have a separately applied handle at the top, or handrail at the top, hand grab. And then we have the chimney. Most of it's in black. There's a few rivets dotted around and a step or two as well. So now I have to move on to the side of the LOCO. Let's talk about the elephant in the room as it was on this model, and that is near the big long splasher and the cab. You can see some of the chassis / motor area sticking out. Technology has come a long way since this was released, and Hornby had to do it for the motor they were using. I just thought I'd mention it. It's not off-putting to me, just thought I'd mention that. So, around the other side, we do have a separately applied metal reversing rod. This being the Great Western, it's on the correct side. Again, like I said, that is metal and that's a fantastic touch. This LOCO being Great Western, it is a development of a Gwr 38Xx, and this is designed by Collet. And the wheel configuration for this is a 280 wheel configuration. All the rods and stuff are metal. The wheels are, I think, they're metal as well. The inserts for the wheels have been covered up, they're all black. The Great Western motion was very simple, and Hornby have captured this perfectly. On the cylinders, I don't think there's any lining at all on it. The running board itself, as around this area, is plastic. It does have rivets on there, and it also has tiny little splashes as well. And then near the cab, we do have some copper pipe working going on underneath there. Again, that is on both sides with the steps. There may be other differences on the running board that I can't see. I do apologise. Also on the running board, we do have a little tiny handrail halfway around. As we were talking about the running board, if you look inside, Hornby have captured the inside motion wonderful. Saying you have the motor in the way, they've captured it wonderful. It's all picked out in red. Hopefully now there should be a video of the one I saw at Didcot, which is the same class, but obviously it's preserved at Didcot. And this one again is preserved at Dartmoor, I believe. And look at the video and look at this. Yeah, Hornby have done a superb job. We do have a steam pipe going down to the cylinders. It's what this class had. We do have tiny splashes, like I said, and we have a long one near the cab. There is pipe work hanging down as well. Just be very careful, these are delicate. We have supports dotted around too. Like I said, this is a collet design. Delivery itself is plain Great Western green. If you look closely enough, you can see where the boiler banding should be if it was going to be lined. We have a metal shiny handrail. We also have some washout plugs near the cab. Again, the body again is plastic, doesn't bother me. As long as it runs okay and looks the part, it doesn't bother me. And then we get onto the cab side. The cab side itself has the number again, which is 3803. We have the blue circle, which is for what it can run on and what it can't, what rails on the Great Western. And again, you can see the collet cab. Again, this is different to the Churchwood cab, which the 28Xx had. We do have glazing in there. You also have a separately applied handrail along the side, and then we come to the cab roof. Like I said, there's no lining, it is a basic Great Western green. As we now move on to the part of the review of a steam locomotive or even a diesel locomotive everyone looks forward to, and that is the cab details and features. And this model came out, 2009, 2010-ish, and it is extraordinarily detailed for the time, and it still is today. Okay, we don't have a flickering firebox or anything like that. Does it need it? Not really. It all comes down to preference. So let's start off with the cab. The cab itself does have everything painted in there. The regulator is a grey. We have the opening hatch for where the coal goes. We have white background on the dials with numbers on. We have copper piping. I think even we have acrylic paint in the water gauges. We also have some glazing in there too. There's a wood floor going on in the cab as well. Everywhere you look on this cab is detailed everywhere. Some of the parts I don't know what to do, so I do apologise, but everything in here has been picked out. Like I said, this is from 2010. It's astonishing for the amount of detail in the cab. And if you look down below, you can see the foreplate between LOCO and tender. That is metal and it is sprung. You can also see some details down there as well, like some copper piping where the plug is. This is a plug LOCO that Hornby did at the time, and it came unplugged. Basically, when you look carefully, you can see some steps and you can see some piping down there. Everywhere I look, there's more and more detail. As we move over to the tender, the tender again has the drawbar, which is plastic. It's not a screwed in one, it's one you have to be careful with. We do have on the front of the tender You can also see some coal. The coal chute or coal is removable, which we'll go into later on. We do have some separately applied stuff like, I think it's a water scoop handle and a brake handle. They are in black. Most things in here are in black. There's a few cupboards as well in green from this angle. But with the metal buffers on the tender, that is a great touch. And again, there's lots of detail Hornby have gone to on this tender. As we now move on to the side of the tender, both sides of the tender to me are exactly the same. Again, there is no lining on this tender. It is in the pure Great Western green. We have lots of rivets on it. We also have some separately applied handrails at either end of the tender. We do have the Great Western initials printed with the correct font on the tender. This tender is the small one. It's not the ones you get on the kings or castles. This is the small Great Western tender. Like I said, there's no lining or anything like that. As we go on down, we do have the axle boxes and springs all crisply applied. We also have the wheels. I believe there is a water scoop under there, which we'll get into later on. And we do have steps at either end where the hand grabs are as well. As we now move on to the back of the tender, again, this does have metal sprung buffers. We also have them coupler already attached to the back, which is always nice. We also have guard irons down there too to knock stuff off the tracks. The buffer beam itself is in red, so are the shanks. Again, the buffer beam shanks and buffers, they are separately applied. Like I said, we have a few rivets on there. We have a set. And then by the looks of it, just below the running board, we do have some small black lamp irons applied, and we also have a steam pipe or vat pipe applied at the back. Moving on, all around the back of the tender, we do have rivets around the outside and along the centre. We have handrails at either side as well, and I think they are metal. We have two steps, one either side. We have a small lamp iron at the top of the tender back. There is no, as far as I can see, there is no plaque to say water and coal capacity or even a builder's plate that I have seen. Then just inside, if you look closely enough, you can see the water filler cap and the dome inside the tender. As we now do an aerial view on top of the tender, let's start in the usual place, which is where the water filler cap is and the dome. There's quite a lot of area where the water filler cap and the dome is. It is in black. We do have some eyes, I believe they are called, to tie stuff down to it, like tarpaulin and stuff like that if the weather gets bad. They are moulded in, they're not separate at all. Again, there is lots and lots of rivets all around the outside and around the dome. The water filler cap doesn't open, but it does have a separately applied small handle on it to lift it up in real life. As we move along, we do have a removable coal load. Mine's a little bit stiff, I don't want to get it out because I am heavy-handed. Again, that is removable and it's not too bad. We do have a place for the fireman tools like shovels, rakes, that sort of stuff. Pity they weren't in a detail bag at all. You can see two sticky up things again. I don't know what they are. I think they could be to check on the water. They are at either end behind the fireman's cupboards that are there in green. And then, like I said before, we do have the water scoop handle and the brake handle and the buffers on the tender. Now on to the top of the LOCO itself. On top of the LOCO, we start in the usual place, which is the cab roof. The cab roof itself is in black with a line of rivets going across, and there is no vents to move or anything like that. It's very basic top of the cab. We do have a plastic whistle with a green shield across it. We also have some markings for where the lining should be, and there is some washout plugs as well. Just behind the cab itself, that is where the motor is, like I said before. As we move along, we do have a separately applied safety valve bonnet. Again, this is in green and it is separately applied. Again, if you look closely enough, you can see the markings for the lining if it's going to have some lining on. We also have, like I mentioned before, some separately applied hand grabs along the boiler. I believe Hornby captured the boiler shape perfectly well. Then we come to the chimney. The chimney itself is separately applied again. This area is just in a normal black. It's not in a gloss or matte like some models. This is quite nice. And again, the body of the LOCO is plastic. And then you come to the supports and buffers. So as we move on to the underneath of the locomotive, from here you can see the wheel configuration again, which is a 280. You can see the front pocket for the coupler, from the end pocket the coupler. We have all metal wheels. You can also see some holes on the cylinders again for the detail parts that are in the bag. You have 4 screws to take off the base cube plate, and the 2 end ones are where the supports came in, and the polystyrene, you just loosen them off and take the supports out and then put it back on and tighten them up. I believe it's the second wheels from the cab that are geared. This is a 5-pole screw round motor in this model. It does have holes for the brake rigging. It also has the brake shoes to line up and the sanding pipes as well to the wheels. All 8 of these wheels do pick up with a traditional copper strip. I do like it. Then as again, like I said, underneath the cab we do have some steps and some of that copper piping that Hornby have done. If you look closely underneath the boiler itself and all around there, you can see some finely moulded on or separately applied pipes. They're there as well, can't forget them, they look quite good. And finally, as we move on to the LOCO and tender connection and the tender itself underneath, the LOCO and tender connection is one of my least favourite Hornby designs, and that is the drawbar is plastic going to the LOCO and tender, and you have to slot it in yourself. It's not like the ones they did around 2018, 2019 where it was all screwed in together straight out the box. No, the tender and LOCO came separate, and you have to put the plug in the tender yourself, which I find nerve-wracking because I am heavy-handed. I am glad Hornby did move away from this concept, and I'm glad they all came pre-fitted from the factory. But it does work, and it is great. You do have 2 settings on your drawbar for close coupling and not. I've gone for the furthest one away. I do believe in the tender, this is where you would DCC fit it, and it is an 8-pin ready, this model. We have 6 wheels on the tender. They all have copper pickups on them. So including the 8 and the 6, that is 12 wheels that pick up, which is a lot. So it should have no issues with the track work or points. Again, the brake rigging is in the detail bag. We also have a water scoop, which I think could be separately applied, it could be moulded. There's also a bar or a cylinder going across between the first tender wheels and the middle tender wheels. Not quite sure what that is for. It's the first time I've seen one on the Great Western model, at least. These are a few screws to take off the base key plate if you wanted to oil the axles and stuff like that. Then we get to the end and we do have the NEM pocket or the NEM coupler already applied, and we see the buffers at the end. I will apologise if I've missed any details on the model. So yeah guys, that's it on the tracks now. Next up, we're my usual points and second radius test. On Hornby's website, or the website I use, does say you can do second radius. I have heard this before for a few manufacturers, and it turns out they can't. So here goes, shall we? Let's see if we can do second radius. That is pretty smooth for something that's been sat in a box for 15 years. What we're talking at, what's that, 20, 21? And back. It's slower in reverse, but could be correct. Yeah, no issues for something that's been in there 15 years. So yeah, it managed my points and second radius pretty well with ease, really. Next it will be some slow speed, so here goes. What's that? It's quite good. 23. Give it some more speed. It's quite good. Smooth as well. So yeah guys, that's the end of the running session and the review. Before I give my opinion, I'll tell you what it was pulling, which was some coaches. Simply because I know this one's preserved. I think it's at Dartmoor, or is it the South Devon Railway? One or the other, it is preserved in real life. So I just thought I'd go with coaches. So the price I paid for mine was £110. I got it off a well-known auction site, which this is brand new. The whole thing about it is new. It's been sat in a box for 15 years when Hornby released it. If you buy these second hand, I think Olivia Trains has them at £160. Again, I'm not sure if they're brand new or second hand, but £160, that's the same price as the new tooled Dapple version when it comes out, as far as I am aware. So my opinion on the model is I had no issues with mine. Nothing of mine fell off, delicate, bent or broken like some I've seen out there. Lots of detail, fantastic detail. It's got the inside motor, looks superb. Okay, yes, it has the chassis or motor block sticking out. You can see it. Once you know it's there and you can't really unsee it. My question at the start of this review was simply, could Hornby re-release this? And I want to say yes, they could, with a few tweaks. And then a few tweaks are obviously modify it so the chassis block or the motor block is not visible. And maybe, clearly with mine, fix the tender and LOCO connection. I think they've done that anyway on previous models with 2 screws, like they do with most models. Or even modify it to do the push fit. And maybe put flickering firebox in there, or they could just keep it as it is and put it in the railroad range plus as a competition towards the new tool Dapple one. They always say competition is good in whatever it is, in modern railways, scale electrics, Formula 1, football, computers, you name it. They say competition is good. Just my opinion. Can I recommend these models? For me, yeah, I love them. They run well. They look good. They look the part. Like I said, they got lots of details. And Hornby did tool up for both classes, the 38Xx and the 38Xx, as you can see here. I will apologise at this point. I'm unsure if my motor sounded loud or dry. With it being sat in a box for so long, I did oil the cogs, I did oil the rods and wheels. I did even clean the wheels, just to make sure they were clean anyway. And for some of the jerkiness, it's down to my track. Currently my track is a little dirty, it's due its clean anytime now. So I do apologise if the motor sounded loud or it was jerking. It's not the LOCO, the running is, it's the track. But as for the motor, I'm unsure if it sounds dry or not. But like I said, I have gave it some oil and lubrication. I think it ran pretty smooth. Like I said, it ran with the coaches for a change because it's preserved. I just thought I'd do a mixed style preserved rake. I don't know if the coaches are preserved, these ones in real life or not. But to me, it looks the part. I understand it's a freight locomotive. And it's nice to have a different freight locomotive by the Great Western that's not the Great Central one, if I'm honest with you. And Hornby should be proud of this locomotive. It's a really nice model. And for me, like I said, I paid a really bargain price of £110. And I love the model. I probably will get the Dapple one in the future at some point. But this is a great model in itself. So that was my review on the Hornby Great Western 38Xx class by Collet. I hope you enjoyed the review. Please take care and goodbye.